Good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. I'm your host, Neil Johnson. Excited to be with you and to share the news with you. We have an assault on Christianity, we have an assault on prayer, and an unwillingness to admit the obvious truth by the left. But we have found out shocking new details from the trans shooter in the diary. This is in the Catholic school mass shooting here in Minnesota. We're going to bring all that to light. I've got a special guest joining us. I do need to mention, though, folks, Birch Gold, look, here's the thing. There is this continued divide between the Federal Reserve and Trump. And the Federal Reserve right now, one of the Federal Reserve board members is been canned. She's now suing Trump. Jerome Powell is obviously antagonistic towards Trump. Trump is applying pressure. But when does this all come together? I really mean this. When do you think the Federal Reserve is just going to do the right thing? Okay, so are they going to take the right action at the right time? What does this mean for our money supply? What does this mean for a lot of things? But I can tell you this much. My silver, since I bought it, is up over 100%. My gold is up, let me think here, 75%. So and I just picked up some more the other day. But I'm just telling you, it's been a stable, sound investment for me. You do what you want, but Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or 401k, you can convert some of that into a tax-sheltered IRA and physical gold, or just buy some to keep in your safe. But text Lumberjack to 989898 because the first step is just getting the information. So no obligation, just useful information. Text Lumberjack to 989898. All right, without any further ado, I'm going to bring on my special guest, and that's the intrepid reporter, Heather Mullins, globetrotter that you are, always hanging out in the power lounge, for all your airline miles.
Stop.
Snapping pictures of Chris Christie blowing into your seat. So anyways,
good times.
Well, we've got a lot to discuss here, but I'm going to just start with the lead on this. And this is really something that's come out that you're not seeing this reported in MSNBC. Okay. Yeah. But the New York Post did bring it. So this is all dealing with the I guess it was the manifesto or the journal of the shooter here. But Minneapolis school shooter. Now, this is interesting. They lead the headline, Minnesota school shooter Robin Westman confessed he was tired of being trans. So the New York Post is using the current name that was changed when he was 17 to Robin from Robert, but still calling him a he. Where others, and I think this is really interesting, are so confused about what to call this guy. But I wish I never brainwashed myself. Tired of being trans. This is the untold story consistently with this stuff, folks. They are assaulting our children. It is an all-out assault on our kids. And we are in a society that's so confused that a Supreme Court justice cannot even tell you what a woman is. This is absolute bizarre nonsense, and they are losing. The left is losing on this issue, and we're going to show you a number of those things. But let me just get into this article, and then I'll have you bring in some commentary too here, Heather. But transgender mass shooter Robin or Robert Westman confessed that he was tired of being trans and wished he never brainwashed himself in a manifesto posted online before he slaughtered 2 children and wounded dozens more at a Minneapolis church. In a twisted handwritten journal he shared on YouTube before the massacre, much of which is encrypted in homespun code of Russian Cyrillic script and English words, Westman groaned about his long hair and his decision to transition. I only keep the long hair because it's pretty much my last shred of being trans. I am tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself, he wrote, according to a translation by the Post. Here he is reading an Amana. Did you see this video, Heather? Reading the Amana manual? Yeah, he just reads from an appliance manual in this. It was weird. I can't cut my hair now. Listen to this. This is how people get themselves locked into an idea and they can't get out of it because they can't admit they're wrong. I can't cut my hair now as it would be an embarrassing defeat. And it might be a concerning change of character that could get me reported. It just always gets in my way. I will probably chop it off on the day of the attack. This is one confused individual.
What pops out to me is, why is he saying it could get, like, cutting his hair could get him reported? That makes me think he's part of some, like, organization or group, like, you know what I mean? Like cult-like behavior. I mean, like, he's not allowed to cut his hair. He wish he didn't brainwash himself. Like, I mean, it really does, like, that one comment makes it seem like he's part of something that's not just himself.
Well, what's interesting too is
every guy's going to investigate all of his devices and things of that nature and get to the bottom of it. But that's what that comment says to me.
well, I want to go back to this whole thing too on the naming. We're going to get back into this story, but I think this is really important because it is really odd to me that our media is so inept. I mean, hopelessly inept, quite
Like,
frankly.
corrupt is the word you're looking for, but we can go with inept if you'd like. I think like, I believe it to be more on the corruption side of things, because you don't you could be, you know, head cashier at Walmart and know some of the things that the media reports are lies, right? Like,
Yes.
men can't have babies and things of that nature. Yet the
What about
media,
Tampon Tim? I mean, you need tampons in a men's restroom.
like there's just so many examples of the media like publishing like comments and stuff.
Hold on, something's playing in the background.
For our trans community,
I think it's
regardless of who you are
Hold
or
on.
where you.
My ex just started playing a video for no reason whatsoever. I did not ask it to do that. Sorry, that's Mayor Jacob Fry, which we'll get into here in just a second. But I want to share, where is it? Right here. Yeah. So here's Kash Patel talking about this situation. Updates on the shooting in Minneapolis. The FBI is investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and hate crime targeting Catholics. There were 2 fatalities, an 8-year-old and 10-year-old. In addition, 14 children and 3 adults were injured. The shooter has been identified as Robin Westman, a male born as Robert Westman. The FBI will continue to provide updates on our ongoing investigation with the public as we are able. And I think that's very well said by Kash. He acknowledges that there was a name change, but he's saying, look, this is how he was born. And where's Jake Tapper? I want you guys to watch this.
Of the puzzle as to who the shooter was. The Minneapolis Star Tribune says, according to court records, because there's been some confusion about what the shooter's name was.
Yes.
Robin Westman's mother applied to change her child's name in 2019. It was at one point Robert Paul Westman.
Correct.
But since she identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification, was underage, it's now Robin Westman.
Okay. This is the state of our media. I mean, they're so concerned. They're not concerned about the death. In fact, they're coming out against prayer. We've talked about that. I've got the Jen Psaki clip. We should probably play that, but it's not just Jen Psaki.
Yeah.
This is like the Mockingbird media has gone into full tilt coming out against prayer and Christianity right now.
Yeah, no, they haven't.
It's the same narrative everywhere, Heather.
Well, I mean, I would expect it to get a lot worse, right? They're going to come hard for Christianity. They're going to come hard for prayer, because we're living in times where there's more revival happening than ever before. I mean, if you look at the music artists like Forrest Frank making Christian music, topping the charts, you have celebrities giving their life to Christ. You have, I think, Mike Posner. You have Kaya Jones, who used to be at the Pussycat Dolls. I mean, you could go on. Russell Brand, who used to be married or dated Katy Perry. I mean, like, all these big names in the entertainment industry that actually have influence are converting to Christianity. Even Justin Bieber has been glorifying him at some of his concerts in the past and like praising God, and in prayer, like Jen Psaki was saying, like, stop with the prayers. Prayers doesn't help anything. No, prayer is what saves people. There is power in prayer. And if there had been a bunch of people praying for that shooter and he had found Christ and found his identity in Christ, he wouldn't have had the identity of a shooter. Okay. And we need to pray without ceasing. We need to pray more for people, especially the kids that are being groomed by trusted authority figures into thinking that they were born in the wrong body and being fed that lie. Imagine being a young, impressionable child and the adults in your life are looking you in the eye and saying there's something wrong with you. You're in the wrong body. Whereas what do Christians do? We say you were made perfect in God's image. You are a creation. You are a unique masterpiece. Which one is more empowering? Which one is going to lead to a child that's going to grow up and to be a good human being? It's not sitting there telling this child there's something wrong with them. And we need to get away from that. The most loving thing you can do to any child that identifies as trans is to tell them, hey, honey, you know, that's an interesting thought, but guess what? There's nothing wrong with you. You were made perfect. You don't have to change a hair on your head. And anybody that tells you otherwise is lying, and they have some problems and we need to pray for them. That's the only thing we should be telling our children.
Yeah. Amen to that. And I find it really alarming, Heather, and I'm going to share this up. Please do me a favor. I forgot to ask you. Please smash that like, chat in with where you're from. I always like to see who's on the stream. I don't always get to acknowledge everybody. So many comments fly by so fast, but I want to show you this. Church of the Annunciation. So this is his mom. This is his mom. And she retired from there, it looks like 5 years ago. 4 years ago, 2021, August 16th of 2021, on Sunday, we honored Mary Grace Westman, who is retiring from Annunciation. And Michelle, thank you for sending this to me, one of my mods. And another thing she sent to me today, and this is really a great point. She said, Hunter was pardoned from 3 gun-related crimes. I do not ever want to hear another liberal or Democrat talk about gun control laws. And this is very important because, first off, they don't even know what guns are or how to talk about them. You want proof? Watch this.
More guns in America than we have people. The reality is that we have these assault rifles that can reel off 30 clips in conjunction with a magazine before the person even needs to reload. The reality is that these guns make their way into cities across America by the trunk.
Okay. Did you guys all get what was wrong with that? I think we have these guns that can reel off 30 clips attached to a magazine. Okay, let me just explain something to you. There is a magazine you insert into a gun that holds rounds of ammunition. And some of those clips can hold 30 rounds. Okay. It's actually called a magazine, not a clip. Now, there's a common vernacular. A lot of people do call them clips. But how does a gun reel off 30 clips in conjunction with these people don't even know what they're talking about. And I think Jesse Waters said something right at the beginning of his monologue the other night that I want you all to hear, because this is so important to this whole thing, because it's not only that they're coming after your Christianity and your prayer, they're coming after your guns too.
Suicidal transgender who hates Trump's Christians and Jews shoots up kids at a Catholic school, and the media wants to take away your handgun. So how are we supposed to protect ourselves from trans shooters? The media is bad at pattern recognition. We aren't. Just 2 years ago, another trans 20-something walked into a Christian school in Nashville with a rifle and shot 3 kids and 3 adults. They buried the manifesto and locked down the case. We've seen trans shootings in Colorado and in Maryland. They even shot up an ICE facility in Texas. And it seems like half of Antifa's trans. A couple of they-thems just got popped for firebombing Teslas. The mayor of Minneapolis says, you can't say that.
So this is, I think, I just want to get that first part out. I believe Jesse Waters made a great point. So they're coming after you and your guns. And now Trey Gowdy, who used to be the darling of the right, came out and did this one, Heather. I don't know if you saw this, but this is nuts.
Our system is reactive. Something bad happens, we react to it. And what people are crying for now is, how can we prevent this? How can we stop it? And the only way to stop it is to identify the shooter ahead of time or keep the weapons out of their hands. And so we're going to have a conversation of freedom versus protecting children. I mean, how many school shootings does it take before we're...
Wait. We need to have a conversation of freedom versus protecting children. Okay, I'm gonna let him finish here.
Going to have a conversation about keeping firearms out, it's always a young white male. Almost.
Whoa. I thought we weren't supposed to call these males. This is the kind of crap I'm talking about. This is the confusion laid. This is like that strategy that they utilize in color revolutions to confuse society.
Always. I mean, did anyone this morning think, I wonder if that was a female? Did any of y'all think that? I mean, there's been one school shooting involving a female. One. Yeah, Tennessee. But other than that, it is usually young white males.
Well, she thought she was a young white male, right? But here's the thing. Actually, by the numbers, I looked this up. And do you know that's not even true? It's not white males that commit the majority of mass shootings. Now, they get the news, and you would think that by just the news, but actually, shootings involving more than 4 people is actually led by black males. So that's by the actual crime statistics, which have been altered. We know that. We just saw what happened in D.C. and what came out of D.C. and how they've been altering the crime statistics. The FBI was actually incentivized. Their agents were incentivized, Heather, incentivized with money and promotions to reclassify things as white national terrorism. This has been going on. So all your statistics that you're listening to are full of crap as well.
Yeah, it just ties right back to the attack on Christianity, because that's what it's about. You know, like when Jen Psaki made her comment saying, you know, stop with the prayers, enough with the prayers. When you look at tragedies like this, the one and only thing that can bring hope and peace amidst the tragedy is what? Is God. Right? He's the only one. When a life is lost, when a child's life is lost, and you believe in Christ and you believe that he's the Redeemer, that child is not gone, which means this shooter didn't actually end that child's life. He merely handed him off to Jesus. And so to sit there as Jen Psaki does and tell her entire audience that prayer is bad and it's not doing anything, when in reality, it's giving parents, it's giving the families of people that hope in the middle of a tragedy. Right? The only little bit of hope that they can have. And Jen Psaki's there trying to rip it away from her and say, don't pray. Don't pray for these people so that they can know God has their babies up in heaven. Right? And that this, you know, man-made tragedy, like, isn't the end all be all for their children. Like, what kind of everything that the left pushes is about disempowerment, is about shame, is about guilt, it's like depressing. And that's probably why all these people that get sucked into this far left culture end up with depression. They don't know who they are. They're searching for an identity. They're changing their pronouns, their names. They know nothing because they don't know who they are in Christ. And so if there's any message to take away for me, like, it's pray without ceasing. There's actual scripture that says, you know, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, because God is the hope in the midst of tragedies like this. He is the hope. So I pray for Jen Psaki too, that she comes to know Jesus, because I can't imagine walking through life in the darkness that is life without him.
Well, it's honestly the only hope. I mean, national revival is truly our only hope. I mean, it's not. The answer is not going to be in politics. I mean, you can certainly, through national leadership, create a greater environment for that. And I can show you examples of that back in Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Kings. And when a righteous king was in, the people did better. Okay, so that's, you know, but truly the only hope we have is Jesus Christ. Now, you mentioned something there, Heather, and I think this is very important. Because who else utilizes shame, guilt, fear, condemnation?
Satan.
Yeah, Satan. So the left is simply being a tool of Satan at this point. And in fact, and there's no honest national discussion going on outside of people like you and I about this, because this is screenshots from Reddit. Okay, this is okay, so I mean, and you can just read this. Elect a fascist, your kids are legitimate targets. Republicans are enemies of humanity. And thinning the herd is our duty. More dead Christians, LOL. To me, it seems like if you elect a bad guy that's cruel to people and weaponize the cruelness and horrific behavior against your neighbors, some of those horrible. Where did that cut off? Maybe their Christo-fascist parents will think twice before supporting an administration that kills Palestinian children. This is good riddance. Am I supposed to feel bad about rich Christian kids are gone? This is how, folks. This is, here you go. Protect trans kids with a butcher knife. This is the exact imprint that was on the Minnesota.
The crazy thing is, and this is, if this message happens to reach anybody on the left, is that I actually do want to protect trans kids. But the problem is I disagree that they're trans. I think they've been lied to. They've been fed a lie that says they were born in the wrong body. And in fact, they weren't. They were perfect the second they came on this earth. And that all the trusted authority figures, all the, like there's a lot of online predators online. Like kids have access to social media at a young age. And all of a sudden they're being groomed by these online social groups that give them what? Identity. Kids are searching for identity. And if you don't raise them up in the way of the Lord, they will get their identity from something else, something more toxic, something more tragic, something that tells them they should be ashamed. They should feel guilty. There's something wrong with them. You have to raise up kids in the way of the Lord. Like it's the only path forward. And there's a war on our children's minds right now. And the schools are like the battleground of the century. We have to get God back into schools because our kids are if we don't, then we're going to see like numbers like what you just had up on the screen multiply.
Yeah. Well, look at this. Here's this publication. As the Trump administration attracts trans people, some queer folks are armed and ready to bash back. Are you triggered? Here's another one. Trans rights or else. Okay. We need to talk about the real violence problem. Now, there's something else. Okay. Death before detransition. Okay. On and on it goes here, but I'm going to pull in something else, Heather, because I think this is really important.
So bad. Oof.
I'll share the Jen Psaki clip, but I want to share this right now. This is RFK Jr. Okay. This is a very important conversation because drugs, I had a drug addict explain to me, he was talking about meth specifically, and I had him tell my kids when they were very young, and he basically defined this as sorcery. Okay. Drugs as sorcery. Now I want you to watch this because this is another big part of the problem that we're not discussing, is just how harmful these drugs are. So watch this clip with RFK.
And we're still trying to get a lot of answers to a ton of questions. But the one thing is clear, you are dealing with a person who's trans, that was transitioning. Are you going to be examining at all some of the drugs that are used in order to make that transition happening, to see if it plays a role? Because we also know there was a trans shooter in the Tennessee situation.
Yeah, we are doing those kind of studies now at NIH. We're launching studies on the potential contribution of some of the SSRI drugs and some of the other psychiatric drugs that might be contributing to violence. Many of them on there had black box warnings that warn of suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. So we can't exclude those as a culprit, and those are the kind of studies that we're doing.
So I've never seen that medicine, but you're saying that if you get it, some of the side effects could be homicide, suicide?
Well, there are black box warnings on some of these psychiatric drugs that warn about in their clinical trials that they saw suicidal and homicidal ideation. So, we are going into that with an open mind.
So
I've been saying that for years, that like all these mass shooters, like I bet you anything they're tied to some sort of drugs.
Well, if you look, I mean, before it was, if you go back to like Columbine, some of these other prior mass shootings, school shootings, they were on the antidepressants, the ADHD, whatever, all these different things. And if you look at their side effects, they say that. So is this really what we want to be doing with kids? Putting them on these psychotropic drugs? Or is the answer to these issues, finding hope in Jesus. It's I want to bring up this Jen Psaki thing. So I'm gonna share the clip with her. I put up with the fake crying here just a little bit. Well,
all they should be hoping to do is have someone to sit with at lunch or someone to play with on the playground. And
I don't buy it.
They should be waiting to hear an update when they get home. And that is not what these parents at the school experience today. Sorry, this is a tough one.
You know, it's a tough one. Believing Jen Psaki after she lied to us from the podium for all that time. That's a tough one.
Your child killed while they are sitting in a pew for a morning prayer service is not what any parent should have to worry about. And I have felt a mixture of anger and a lot of anger and emotional exhaustion about this today, as I'm sure many of you have, because we have been here so many times.
How many of you, honestly, how many of you believe that Jen Psaki is like being real here? How many of you just care?
Okay, well, I'm going to say thumbs down on that because that's the fakest cry I think I've ever heard. Like, as a mom, where like I'm touched by this stuff too. Like, I cried during The Lion King, for crying out loud. Like, I know what genuine, authentic crying sounds like, and it's not that. It's not that. Because if you were that compassionate and caring, you wouldn't be online demonizing people praying for the families.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't buy it for a second. So I'm curious to see what the comments say. Let me look at.
She's fake.
And yet again, like clockwork, half of the politicians in our country have little more to offer than thoughts and prayers. That is all they are offering. Join all of us in praying for the victims, was Vice President J.D. Vance's response today. That's what he said. That's it. Please join me in praying for everyone involved, Trump wrote. We have seen this play out over and over again. There is a shooting, then come the thoughts and prayers, and then comes the attempt to shift the focus. This is what always happens. You're going to start seeing narratives. You're already seeing them. They're already out there. About how the shooter was trans. You're going to see narratives about how the shooter appeared to be anti-Trump and anti-Semitic.
Appeared. I can't anymore. I just can't. I'm out.
In his own words.
He's written it on the magazines of the guns and F Trump and all this. Appears.
Like Jen Psaki, right, is on X. You know damn well, can I say damn well? You know damn well she's seen the manifesto, right? It's all over the place. You can read it. You can see his own words. If she had any shred of journalistic integrity, she would know what you've been explaining to your viewers on your show today, that he regretted being trans, referred to himself as brainwashed, and all this other stuff. But she's not going to acknowledge those facts because it's going to hurt her agenda, right? So ultimately, she doesn't actually care about the kids, because if she did, she would want to get to the root cause of what led this man to do that unthinkable act in the first place. And that goes straight into what he was thinking, what was contributing to his thinking, like drugs, like SSRIs. Were any of those in the mix here? Was he online, connected to some like online group or, cult like stuff? Because there are groups like that the FBI has warned about. There's terrorist groups online that are like preying on kids. And so this has all been documented. Those are all the facts. But does Jen Psaki really care about the facts? No, she doesn't. She cares about fake crying and criticizing prayer. That's her motive.
Furthermore, Heather, if they cared about the kids, they would care about the girls getting raped by illegal aliens. And they would care about Trump actually cleaning up the streets and stopping crime in D.C. But instead, they're actually opposed to that. They're opposed to Trump stopping crime in D.C. We've had 0 murders now for 10 days in D.C.? This doesn't even happen in the real world. And now they're all coming out like J.B. Pritzker. I mean, he needs to send the Goddard National Guard to Minneapolis, for Pete's sakes, because Governor Walz and Mayor Fry don't have a handle on anything there. Not a thing.
Well, it's funny too, because isn't gun control one of the strictest in your state where this happened?
Yeah, so we've got Illinois is the worst if you want to break it right down to brass tacks. Illinois is absolutely horrendous, but I want you to look at Chicago then. So, which has actually a higher murder rate than Minneapolis. Minneapolis, we're understaffed on cops. We can't bring cops into Minneapolis because why would you want to work for them? Because you're going to go spend time in jail if somebody dies of a fentanyl overdose while you're arresting them. That's what's going on in Minneapolis. So nobody wants to be a cop in Minneapolis. Okay. I mean, not only did the guy who was saying Derek Chauvin go to jail, those other rookie officers went to jail. They went to prison, I should say, for years. Okay. And not for anything that they had control over. If you've ever watched The Fall of Minneapolis, I recommend you do. You can see the fentanyl in his mouth. It's there. It's in his mouth. He was so amped up on fentanyl. That's what George Floyd died from. That body cam footage was not even allowed into the courtroom. How can that not be admissible in a courtroom? This is insanity. So there's not only something wrong with the governance in Minnesota in terms of Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, Mayor Fry of Minneapolis, the crazy nut job lieutenant governor who's even worse than Tim Walz. Okay. You've got those problems. But beyond that, you have, where was I at, Heather? The problem, I was talking about police.
Oh yeah, the gun control. Yeah, because well, this like in the gun-free zones is where all this stuff happens.
Oh, I just can't with all this. Yeah, and so we just have real issues. In fact, I want to share a couple videos from our leaders, okay, in this state. But I do want to bring back in this article because this is if you just jumped on the stream, here's what's going on. Part of the decode of this manifesto journal of Robert Westman, he confessed he was tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself. Okay. And we were down here, but I want you to look here. Kill Donald Trump, rip and tear. Okay. I'm the Waker baby. Why so curious? I've watched the video. I'm not going to play it. YouTube deleted the video. What's interesting is this guy had a YouTube channel. He had a number of these videos up that are now getting deleted. Yet YouTube was coming after me for exposing issues with elections.
That's such a good point, Neil. Like with all the technology that they'll flag a post or a comment about, quote unquote hate speech, but they can't program their software and AI to recognize some dude that's about to go commit a crime.
Yeah.
Like,
and even that before that, he was promoting all this crap. So he's promoting hate and killing. I'm just asking for free and fair elections, and I'm the one getting banned and struck and demonetized.
I can't help but keep thinking back to that comment he made where he's like, if I cut my hair, I could get reported.
I know.
Like, think about that. But, like, the only way that would make sense is if he's part of something bigger than himself. And like he's part of their group, or I don't know. It sounds like,
how is this going to work out against him? If he cuts his hair, because here's the quote, folks, just to bring you back to what Heather's talking about. If you just jumped on the stream, he said, I only keep the long hair because it is pretty much my last shred of being trans. I am tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself, he wrote, according to a translation by the Post. I can't cut my hair now, as it would be an embarrassing defeat. And it might be, here's where it goes. Listen to this, folks. And it might be a concerning change of character that could get me reported.
By who? That's the
like
question.
Who? To who?
Who is he afraid is going to be upset if he cuts his hair and is no longer trans? That's what needs to be answered.
Exactly.
Like, it sounds like he's part of some group or organization. I don't know, like Antifa, whatever the hell it is, but it sounds like he's part of something. And if, like, it's very cult-like, right? Like, if you're in a cult and you deviate outside of their norms, it raises alarms. And then the cult turns against you, and it can be like social suicide within that organization. It almost sounds like he's describing that somehow cutting his hair and not being trans will get him red flagged in some group he's a part of.
I'm curious because I haven't seen, I've seen no pictures of the dead body. I don't know that anybody has, because he did end up dying in this, but I will probably chop it off on the day of the attack. So almost for this dude, this is like his freedom. Right?
Yeah, like he's going back to his roots or something. Like,
it's really weird. I mean, imagine the demonic influence on this young man's mind. And I'm not saying that lightly at all.
I really hope that they, that Cash Patel and the FBI start digging in, not just him, but the guy that, got up and tried to take out President Trump at that Butler rally. There's no way that guy got on that room without somebody knowing about it, which makes me think that there is some kind of like covert operation taking mentally unstable individuals and grooming them into being like radicalized domestic terrorists. I mean, this is what they do in Middle Eastern countries when they groom people into being suicide bombers. It's the same sort of thing. You prey on the mentally vulnerable, you break them down psychologically using different forms of, brainwash, and then you build them back up in an image that you want. I mean, there's some seriously sinister stuff going on, and a lot of it doesn't make sense. Like, how does the Butler shooter breach Secret Service for the most watched man and the most popular figure in the world, you could argue? Like, if they should have had every freaking like corner of that rally covered, how did that one lone guy just miraculously breach the most elite Secret Service and security detail? And then now you have this shooter saying that like somehow he's going to get reported for cutting his hair. These are the kind of red flags that I pick up on that are like, it makes me think. And I think there was a Texas shooter that also worked at like Wendy's and had like thousands and thousands of dollars he couldn't afford in weapons when he shot up like some Texas school. I might be getting my shooters confused, but there's always like this kid that they try to pin it on like he's some rogue lone shooter, but all of the facts surrounding him are like, there's no way he could have done this with some outside help or influence.
Well, and this guy, again, is concerned about getting reported. By whom, to whom? That's the question.
Come from Minneapolis is a place where you should be proud to call
I'm going to bring this in now. Fine. I'm going to bring it in. So this is the state of Minneapolis. By the way, I wanted to highlight this comment by KD6AAJ. If only the people at the church have been armed to fight back. How many of you believe that we should have armed security guards or teachers who are willing be trained and be armed in schools? A yes or no? I want to do a quick poll here. How many believe that we need armed security officers or armed teachers at schools? With that being said, as you're answering that, I'm going to play these videos. Watch this.
And I want all of you just to know exactly where we are. And I want all of you just to know exactly where we are as far as our neighbors go. Minneapolis will continue to be a safe haven for undocumented immigrants.
This is Mayor Fry.
For our trans community.
Here's what you really need to understand about Mayor Fry. The other candidates running against him were so bad that the Minneapolis Police Union had to endorse this guy. And that is not hyperbole. I talked to members on the force and they're like, well, Jacob Fry is our best bet now. That's how bad this is in Minneapolis.
But isn't Minnesota where two like lawmakers got assassinated after they voted against their party?
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe that's why nobody's running out of fear of getting like assassinated or something.
Here, we're gonna let you watch a couple more. This is Governor Walz.
For being a safe haven for transgender individuals in Minnesota. And can I just say, we can talk about economic growth and feeding children and growing the economy and creating jobs simultaneously with talking about everybody's human rights matters, and we shouldn't be demonizing that. They are weaponizing your empathy against you, folks. Don't kid yourself for a second. 44 times.
This is Keith Ellison. Quite frankly, he's in the top 5, if not the worst attorney general in the country. Went full tilt on businesses during the COVID issue. But listen to this character. He's bragging right now about suing the Trump administration over these policies.
Dude, 44 times. And we'll sue him 44 more and 44 more after that. And we have sued him for gender affirming care. Yes, we are not going to scapegoat the community.
What's that?
Oh, I was correcting him. He said gender affirming care, but he means like child mutilation.
Yes.
And we have sued him to stand up for medical research, National Institute of Dude.
Because let's be clear.
Now this, just so you know, this is our lieutenant governor, and she is worse than Tim Walz. Okay, now Tim Walz is talking about running for a third time. Keith Ellison is talking about running, and this chick was talking about running.
This is life-affirming and life-saving healthcare.
Okay, and again, this is the Protect Trans Kids with the knife right on the shirt. I mean, this is next level.
When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them.
This reminds me, Heather, actually, of the whole believe all women garbage. Okay, and it's like we're just supposed to believe people without having any facts, simply based upon their sex or their orientation or what they believe. You're just supposed to believe them.
Yeah.
That's not how their justice systems work. You just don't just believe people. Okay. Yeah. There's facts and law that go into this. And now parents are just supposed to believe their kids, even when their kids are telling them something that's patently false.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of goes back to Christianity, right? Like we have to get our moral backbone back as a society. And that's where we're going to find discernment and learn how to discern right from wrong, you know, and truth from lie, like going right back to the transgender issue. What is true and what is false when you sit there and tell a kid that they're in a wrong body, right? Well, it comes back to the fact that they were made perfect in God's image and that's who they are. And then, you know, I don't know, it just seems like we're living in a clown world sometimes, but it all comes back to just sanity and common sense, which is rooted in like biblical moral truths. Like that's where the truth starts, is from biblical moral truths. And then we expand outward from there. And it's just like, we have so much of a population right now that is spiritually dead. And without that moral compass, that this is the lies and the realities that they concoct on their own. And it's just so like, it blows my mind, honestly, Neil. Like never in a million years would I sit here thinking that like I'm talking about trans. Like I don't even think there is such a thing as trans. No. I think it's a made up construct. It doesn't exist. There's just boys and there's girls, and there's what you tell them, right? And what we have, the reason that trans has even come to exist is because you have trusted authority figures that have gone to children that were young and impressionable, fed them a lie, a total lie, a fabrication of who and what they are, and instilled that into these young kids' psyches at a young age. And then they grow up and they become what the shooter was. And it's just, it blows my mind. And I just hope and pray that every single person out there, even there's a lot of parents, I'm sure, right, that are confused about the trans stuff. And, you know, there was this young girl, for example, that did Girl Scouts with my daughter when they were younger. And we lost touch over the years, but I follow her on some social media platforms. And her daughter now identifies as trans. This is like young little blonde girl that did Girl Scouts with my daughter is now identifying as a young boy, and the mom is like enabling it and goes to these like weekly parent meetings on like how to, you know, like trans parent night or something where you can go and have some little emotional support group with other parents that have trans kids and you're confused about it, but you like lean on each other. And it's like, I think what it all comes down to is they're afraid of hitting a social landmine. Like, cause this is in Massachusetts, right? So like if she comes out and says like, no, honey, you're not trans, you're not this. Well, then like when you have the government, like in some places taking kids away from parents that don't affirm them, which I believe is in your state, right, Neil? Like they take, like if you don't affirm your child's delusions, the government can come in and like just kidnap your kids from you. And so I think there are a lot of parents out there that are feeding into their kids' delusions, maybe out of fear or a number of different things. But, you know, I would just ask everybody watching, pray for those parents, because this is really a demonic, like.
It's very demonic. And I think that's what Trump's sword, progressives, aka satanic, enough said. It is demonic activity. And our government has failed us. But Heather, I want you to know, do you know who hasn't failed us?
God.
Mike Lindell.
Oh. Mike Lindell, of course. Mike never fails us. You know why though? It's because Mike is walking with the Lord, and he's an extension of God and God's love and light, and so by his pillows.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And so you can get right now Percale bed sheets for $29.88. That's savings up to $90, any color, any size, and free shipping on your entire order of over $100 or more. Not only that, My Pillow Premium Queens for only $20, $19.98. That is employee pricing. The slippers, your favorite, Heather. There's your favorite.
Mine are actually the moccasin ones. Like
Yeah.
I live up in New Hampshire where it's really chilly. And you know, I should plug my promo code if they're gonna buy the moccasins, but but the moccasins are great because they have like a grip on the bottom, but then they're soft inside like an UGG slipper. And so you can just walk around your house when it's cold and not need shoes on, but you have they're like little clouds. I just freaking love them.
You know what you need to try, Heather? This stuff right here.
What?
Rev 7. This stuff is so awesome, these energy drinks. So I use them before my cycle class. And yesterday I went to the gym and for some reason my thinking was off by a day. And so I wasn't I didn't have it because I was saving it for the next day for cycle. And I was just like dogging it during cycle. I mean, I didn't have a great night's sleep, but I mean, that stuff will overcome. But I've missed a super chat here. So Chauncey, thank you so much. Minnesota Patriot here, proud Catholic with multiple young children. Police in the National Guard. The state has been destroyed by radical leftists. There you go.
Yeah.
Donald Trump sees this. There's the message.
I mean, we really need to and I'm sure the FBI is already doing it, but just compiling like all of the mass shootings and things like that have happened. And then just seizing all their communication devices and like getting to the bottom of what's really going on. Because I just feel like there's something bigger at play.
Yeah, no, there is. Well, we're in a spiritual war, and that's the real reality of all this is there is no one person. Like I know George Soros does things, but he's not the one person controlling every bad thing going on, folks. Ultimately, he is under the control of another. And it's you know, we are in a spiritual war. The trans kids are not your enemy. I want to make this very clear. They are not your enemy. They are people who do need your love and compassion. They need real
love more than anyone. In fact, showing love to someone who identifies as trans could make the difference of that person going off the deep end or coming back home to Christ. So I think if anything, we should be praying and sending as much love to those kids as humanly possible because they need it more than ever.
I'm going to share a story actually to end this broadcast because you just brought something up that's very important, Heather. So my friend, his daughter got married, and the young man that she married, his dad was a pastor. And he told my friend, he's been a friend of mine for years, a solid friend. He told him this story, and it was about a homosexual young man. Okay. And he was playing organ in the church. And, you know, you kind of have to be guided by God when you're doing things like this, because there's just a lot of different ways to approach it. And sometimes you need to drop the hammer. Sometimes you have to be very spiritually attuned to what the person will actually respond to. But the young man comes up to the pastor, which is, again, the father of my friend's son-in-law, and says to him, I need to confess something to you. And he confessed that he was a homosexual in a relationship with some guy. And he was a great organ player. And so the pastor actually looked at him and said, well, first off, I want to thank you for sharing with me, because that's the first step to healing. Repentance begins with confession. I really don't want another person playing the organ. I want it to be you. Okay. But we need to help you. And then he told the young man how much he loved him, and he gave him a hug. And I think it was within 2 weeks, that young man changed his life. He was not living in that relationship. He had repented, and he was on a path to wholeness. What's so interesting about this story is that young man told the pastor, he said, that's the first time in my life that a man has ever touched me without wanting something from me. Now, and think about how crazy that is. So this is a young man who's obviously been abused since he was a child by men. Yeah, it's hard to even get there. And that is such a profound story of redemption. And that's how it is with God in us. And
You think too is that guy showing him love and compassion in that moment instead of like, criticizing him and shaming him and using like that kind of a response led him to that. And I think that's important to note in ministry, because even in conservative and Christian circles, we see a lot of the shaming going on that, like, hate the sin, but not the sinner. And I think that gets caught up in the, grandstanding of politics. But I love that in this situation, his act of love and compassion completely brought that boy back to Christ.
Well, it says in the Bible that it's God's goodness that leads us to repentance. Now, here's the thing. The kid already felt appropriate shame. Otherwise, he never would have confessed it. And it wouldn't have been hard for him to do. It's the people who don't feel appropriate shame that you need to be more concerned about. So, and if there's two people who are just living together out of wedlock, I mean, that's still sin.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to make one sin that much worse than the other, I'll probably tick people off, but that's just the reality. If you can't take out parts of like Jefferson did with the Bible. He took out all the miracles. That was the Jeffersonian Bible. He just removed them. Like, the miracle parts, those are gone. Like the good parts. Anyways, but this becomes so key to us and how we live our lives and what we do and how many stones are we casting. And the only reason we're not forgiving well is because we don't understand how much we're forgiven of. Once we get to that point, that's when we are free to love and forgive others. I want to bring in another comment here. Democratic Party officials keep scrubbing clean phones and social media presence of these shooters. They are hiding the truth. That's very true, Charles. I did download the video of him going through the manifesto. Not that I'm going to share it here because, again, it would just YouTube's already removed it. They don't want it out there, but I have it. I mean, I think it's still up on X. I could repost it to my X account, folks. In fact, Heather, your X account, why don't you tell people where they can find you, your social media handles, and you're with a new news organization. So why don't you let the people know what you're up to? And I will find this and repost this.
Sure. You can follow me on social media at Talk Mullins, and I'm with America First News now. And, we're going to be launching a whole bunch of shows in the near future and lots of fun stuff going on. So you can go to americafirstnews.com and sign up for the email newsletter, but we're just doing a soft launch, but the big launch is coming up around the corner.
Yeah. So I did just repost that, folks. I'm just at Neil E. Johnson on X. But if you want to see the video of the shooter that YouTube took down, again, it's there. I just put it as the top post if you want to watch it. It's pretty disturbing stuff. I did not watch the whole thing. I kind of got after watching like the first 2 minutes, I kind of had more than I needed. Yeah. It was really bizarre. But you need to understand the mental unfitness, the mental illness, the demonic possession, and what it leads to. So with all that being said, folks, I want to thank you for joining us on another edition of Lumberjack Logic. You can find Heather again at Talk Mullins on X. I'm at Neil E. Johnson on X. I want to thank all you super chatters, Chauncey, Trump Sword, Charles, and Immortal Legend. Thank you so much for that. And, a couple of you cash at me the other day, so thanks for that too. You're wonderful people. Cracker Barrel is still in trouble. I should do a video on Cracker Barrel. And then I do have, again, the secret, like the untold story behind the Trump raid, special guest coming on who was there next week. So make sure you're subscribed. You have those notifications turned on because you're not going to believe this backstory. It's bombshell stuff. The mainstream media did not tell you the truth about this one. So surprise. Anyways, we'll see you on the next episode, folks. Peace out. All right. Love y'all.